Hello, everyone. I want to put out a video about being put down. It was inspired by Nikki Green having a video about narcissists putting folks down. And, this is a little different than the most of my videos about sports, book reviews, movie reviews, etc. Okay, let's see. She talked about speaking up, and she used the example of the famous saying about the emperor had no clothes. And some child say, what was it about the emperor, that nobody would say that the emperor had no clothes until some child said it. And I brought up an ad for Scope mouthwash years ago, where the guy says, "I hate to tell you this, boss, but you have bad breath. You need Scope. You need Scope." And I guess he's lucky if the boss didn't tell him, "I hate to tell you this, you're fired." But that's just a little humor there. But I tried to look up that ad, and maybe if I search a little harder, I could find the exact ad. But I saw a different ad where it showed a dignified older man with a suit on coming to his house, and his wife was there, and he told her what happened at work and asked his wife, and his wife confirmed that he had bad breath. Now, I don't recall having seen that one, but I saw the other one, and it made an impression on me. Let's see. Of course, if you can't pay the price, don't roll the dice. There's balance with things. There's the picking of battles and deciding what is important enough to fight for. Let's see. Trying to think about this thing. I don't know whether I have it written here later, about Les Brown talking about speaking up, but he also, the motivational speaker, he also talked about the consequences. And he talked about, do you want security or opportunity? And that's something to give a lot of thought of, and that what gets back to don't roll the dice if you can't pay that price. Les Brown, for those of you who may not know, was adopted, had no college training, but basically went from rags to riches. He's an author and a lecturer, and you can look him up on YouTube. I don't know if his books are also on YouTube, but YouTube does have a lot of books on audio. And then I mentioned a movie, I believe it was called Idiot, but I could be wrong. It had a picture of a black fella with his head upside down. And he had gotten to a fierce argument with somebody about whether the Queen of England had to use the bathroom. And he got all upset and said that if she doesn't use the bathroom, she'll die. So I try to remind myself of that movie when I find myself arguing over silly things. And I've heard of people talking about folks that try to push your buttons, meaning say or do the things that they feel will annoy you. Let's see. Was there something else I wanted to think? Annoy you. I guess I'll move on. I might come back to it. Then she talked about somebody being overly critical and technical about such things as whether the sky was blue, and then saying that, well, technically it's not blue. And she said, well, the sky is blue, regardless of that. And I just thought of Joel Osteen talking about when people belittle you, they are being little. And I thought of an example that I had where a fellow was telling me about a cell phone is not a cell phone because it didn't use a cell. And this was in spite of a dictionary explaining what a cell phone was. So he was disputing the dictionary based on his understanding of the situation. And then he would tell me about a cordless phone was still part of the landline because there was still a wire going to the other phone, and disputed about whether an old-fashioned traditional phone was indeed a landline, I believe is what he was saying. But to use my big word of the day, I've heard folks say that being overly pedantic or being pedantic, picking at small details, is rude. And then unfortunately, I put up with this, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. And he's even told me, say, well, you're going to be lonely, because he feels I depend on him to have someone to talk to. And others are like that. I just had someone hang up on me, and she had constantly kept interrupting me, repeating what she's saying, and then would tell me, well, that's your problem. She kept playing with her dog. And I'm thinking like, well, why wouldn't you wait till the dog went to sleep or that you weren't occupied with the dog before you would call somebody? And another little fella that writes for a tabloid would constantly interrupt me and tell me it's because what I had to say was idiotic. So obviously, he didn't have enough respect to hear what I have to say. And, I've heard someone tell me, say, well, people know you like to be right all the time, so they play on your intelligence. Now, that can be part of it, but I mean, naturally, sometimes when you feel you are right, you want to speak up. But Joel Osteen has talked about, well, even if you win certain arguments, what have you won? So, I got a buddy that gets on me about that. Oh, no, I don't know. Man, it's just a figure of speech. It slipped out. Oh, there I go again. But anyway, maybe I should just say like I tell him, I say, well, you don't know. Yes. Maybe I should say yes instead of yes. So let's see. Living condition. Now, yeah, she talked about people that say that they have more than she does. She talked about the person that says they have Jordans or a swimming pool and this and that. So I wrote a number of comments under Nikki Green's video, which had to deal with narcissists putting you down. I hope you'll take a peep at it. It's on my Facebook too. I'm Archie.Thomas.716, and you should be able to find it there as well. And of course, I hope you'll check out my channel. I hope I'm not being too long-winded. You know, you can take that pointer if a particular portion of something is boring you, and then just maybe point just a little bit ahead and see if the next part of the conversation will interest you. I do that all the time. Yeah, so I think I may have mentioned about the security or opportunity. I see I have that written down here. Because I have thought about possibly moving, but it might be a strain, you know. Let's see. So she was talking about the children saying, I'm rubber and you're glue. What you say bounces off of me and gets back to you. Now, a lot of people are not going to let you say things like that. They're going to overtalk you and interrupt you. So that's why it's also important to know within yourself certain things so that they don't get inside your head and have you questioning yourself. You know, and which gets back to when she was talking about people putting you down for what they have. I knew a very lovely, physically Ethiopian lady, and she's mentioned to me a number of times about me not tipping her when I would come to her hot dog stand. I said, well, you know, the hot dog stand is not traditionally a place where people get tipped. And if I'm coming to see you several times a week, maybe you should just be happy and thank me that I'm patronizing you. But oh no, she gets it, well, that's how you were raised, and that's how Black people were raised. So she's going to slam people because of that. And then she says, I don't need anything from you. I have an apartment, a lovely apartment, and I've got vehicles to drive and so forth. And I say, well, but do you own anything? You know, oh, you don't know. You don't know. So, and she would say like, well, she was better than me and stuff like that. And sometimes that can make you feel bad. And that's where it gets back into not letting people get inside your head, so to speak, trying to maintain some self-esteem. I used to wash dishes, and some of the wait staff or whoever cooks would throw their nose up at you, and they are doing jobs that most Americans don't want to do, or may feel that they're too good to do themselves, even if they're doing a little better than, or a lot better than, say, a dishwasher. I used to have people say, well, you don't realize what a good job you have, because see, now with me working full time at one point, I did have health insurance, and some of these folks were working part-time and didn't have that. I know I'd worked at a temp one time, and I would wear the tuxedo suit, and I'd see a young lady washing the dishes, but because she was, I believe, was piling up more hours than I was, and she was actually making more than I was. The same thing when I used to get paid to pass out free papers. I would get, better pay than, say, making roughly double the money working elsewhere, but without the hours. let's see. Let's see. Let me see. Yeah, and then I wanted to mention too, there's a fella here in the building. And I happen to be in the public housing, and he's always saying he has so much money and he has a house, and he shows people the picture of his house. And I've seen him where he didn't even have underwear on because his pants are falling down, slipping off of him. And somebody say, well, maybe he just doesn't like underwear. I believe he does have some money, always boasting about what his children are doing, which has me think about a song by Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, which was Be For Real. And Teddy, the late Teddy Pendergrass, was the lead singer. And he would sing, he would sing, and then part of the song was talking. And he said, well, why would you get around people that don't have what you have and make them feel bad? And he said, if you're going to boast around people that are in your bracket. And talked about saying that, and you won't even buy them a beer. So it's important not to let folks get into your head. I saw something on Facebook that if they won't let you talk, don't talk, which is very important. Of course, now sometimes you're in situations where you're conducting business and it's essential that you get your point across and to be able to, so to speak, leave a paper trail. So you have to find a way to get your thought across, whether it's in an email, a written note, trying to maybe even consult with lawyers or other professionals for advice on how to deal with a situation. I've had people tell me, say, well, you can't come to people asking for help, acting like you know everything. But at the same time, sometimes the people will tell you their hands are tied, there's nothing that they can do. And if you do have at least some knowledge of what's going on, you can speak up and see if you can't convince them to go ahead and help you. To take you from what you can't do and for them to do. Joel Osteen talks about that in the situation with God. Well, naturally, you do what you can and let God do what you can't. Let's see. Folks boasting. Let's say person making you feel something. Yeah, now she was talking about people making you feel bad. This is Nikki Green, and asked the question, or am I tripping? I think it's also important that, like the 12-step program that alcoholics and others use, where the first step is, if you are wrong, promptly admit it. So sometimes criticism, if it's correct and teaches you something, you should try to learn from it. And at the end of her video, she mentioned she doesn't put toxins in her body and she doesn't put them in her mind, which is very important, but it's also important to acknowledge the imperfections of people. we can try, but there are going to be times when we slip up, whether it be eating some snacks that aren't good for you and just trying to move on, or tolerating what you consider bad behavior. I think it was the preacher Mike Murdock said, you can't change what you will tolerate. So I'm just going to think if there's anything else that I want to mention. And I think that's about it. I've been keeping up with the politics a little bit. I believe they said Trump has named Jeff Sessions for I think it was the Attorney General, General Mike Flynn, and they say Sessions had said some things about race that some people didn't like, and Mike Flynn, it's been speculated on TV, couldn't get approved for anything, but he'll be the national security advisor. And speaking of that, I hope that you will give me a thumbs up or thumbs down, possibly subscribe, write some comments. And speaking of the politics, one of my latest videos is Andrew Breitbart's book. I forgot the name of it offhand, but that's one of the videos I made. I've also done a number of book reviews of Anne Trump, including her latest, In Trump We Trust. So I hope you'll check out some of my videos. I've been kind of doing this stream of consciousness and just trying to think and speak at the same time. And in this video, I also made a book review of Running with the Champ, and in parentheses it says Ali. So far, I'm the only one who has read that, but I think that any Ali fan would enjoy my book review, and I have a number of reviews of boxing, including Pacquiao's most recent fight with Jesse Vargas. Since I mentioned the politics, I'd like to mention that I did a movie review of Confirmed, which dealt with the Clarence Thomas hearings for him to get on the Supreme Court. And it starred Kerry Washington. So I guess that's about it. Let me put this thing off.